Well, I have Mike Farrah, who's Senior Commercial Director of Ingram Micro in the UK, John Mayer, VP of Channel Financing, and Ivana, Shepard, Head of Sustainability at Ingram. And thank you all for joining us. I'd like, if I could, start with you, Ivana. First of all, do you see a demand, indeed an interest, coming down the lines of communications for what are more sustainable options in IT?
Absolutely. So we're seeing multiple trends developing in the IT channel. Number one, a lot more companies are committing to sustainability goals, and they're making these very bold commitments. I mean, just over the past few years, we have seen an uptick in companies making long-term commitments, and this has been reflected in passing down these responsibilities down the supply chains. Number two, we are seeing a lot more pushback and a lot more interest from the investors and from financial companies that are paying attention to issues beyond just profit, and they're paying attention to non-financial commitments. And then number three, we have, with the risen awareness of global environmental issues, so Gen Z have expressed, and they think that social and environmental performance of a company is extremely important when they're making the decision whether to purchase a product or a service of that company, and they're gaining much more purchasing power. And just like any other sector, the IT sector is facing challenges in terms of decarbonization, but IT can also be a great tool in helping other sectors achieve emissions reduction and greater sustainability.
Mike, if I could turn to you as the guy really at the coalface and the one that must take a commercial view of all of this, what are you hearing from your resellers about sustainability?
I think most resellers realise they need a strategy or a policy around sustainability, but I think they're very much at differing points in the journey. Most, I would say, are leaning on vendors and distributor partners for guidance and support. And I think the key questions that they're asking themselves internally are, how do we emphasize sustainability in our own business?
Do you think that sustainability is really starting to have an impact on the end users' buying decisions?
Yes, I would say increasingly so. But obviously, that's going to speed up, I would say, over the next 2 to 3 years, as the urgency for sustainability to be at the forefront of technology increases. I think in a lot of cases there's a disconnect from the sustainability policy of an organisation and the IT decision makers within that organisation. So I guess, again, this is where us as a distribution partner and our vendors need to assist our reseller partners with the tools and training to be able to help end users form a technology sustainability policy as part of their overall sustainability pledge.
I mean, John, you've clearly got experience from the ITAD perspective when old equipment is removed from the end user after use. How do you see progressive steps like manufacturing changing the landscape of what happens to used products?
It's a great question, and it's an exciting time because, I'm going to be real clear. This is a disruptive time in the industry. I mean, this remanufacturing is a disruptive type of thing, and it's a good disruption. And ultimately, it will actually create a situation in the traditional ITAD environment where they are perplexed, because you've now instituted something from the vendor on one side, the remarketing, refurbed on the other side, and now you have this remarketed, quasi-new. So I think traditional ITAD is going to have to be, revamped from how they looked at this business in the past.
Ivana, if I could come back to you, how much of a role do you think government legislation needs to play in all of this, or is this always going to be just an individual business, an individual person's choice?
That is a fantastic question, and there's this conundrum, happening. Is it the government's responsibility? Can they drive this change? And certainly, they definitely should be behind this, because otherwise, companies would not necessarily make the commitments that they are required to. And so it's more about collaboration. And I know that there is a lack of collaboration between, governments and companies. So the more of this collaboration that we see, and the more we see governments really pushing for this and actually checking on the companies whether they're doing a good job, and acting on, giving them maybe some feedback and some repercussions that come with non-acting or enacting in terms of sustainability commitments. But I truly see it as kind of a triage of governments, companies, and also individuals playing their role.
I mean, clearly the globe, the world is going through a very traumatic period. The global pandemic, it's shown people how those world events can come right to your own doorstep. Do you think that experience will change how people view, indeed, how they react to the climate crisis?
I think the pandemic has definitely opened the eyes of a lot of people. It is a different type of a crisis, compared to the climate crisis, because you don't necessarily see the impacts of climate change in your day-to-day life, although there are a lot of regions around the world that have been experiencing rising ocean levels and fires. And especially in the past few weeks, I mean, we have seen an unprecedented amount of natural disasters happening around the world. So I certainly think that the more the world's sustainability is not just a buzzword, but it becomes an actionable word. I feel like there can be a lot of disruption happening on both sides, coming from customers, as they certainly do drive behavioral changes on the side of companies as well.
Mike, circular computing, bringing a certified as new remanufactured product to market with Ingram, with no variable cosmetic grades. How significant do you think that is to the reseller's acceptance of a pre-used product over, let's say, a refurbished alternative?
There is definitely a valued space or place in the device landscape for refurbished product, but the words as new in relation to remanufactured obviously give a significant degree of comfort over a refurbished product where this cannot be guaranteed. So it allows for peace of mind around consistency of product quality, both in performance and aesthetics.
I would characterize what Circular has done for remanufacturing as they have actually accomplished the impossible. No one ever thought you could actually do such a solution like this. Being able to go out with something that's remanufactured new with a reduction in cost that is new, and then being able to do multiple life streams of a product line is really what we call the utopia in the industry.
Mike, I know you've been selling circular computing remanufactured laptops for, quite a few months now. So I wonder what insight you have, how it's going, and what the feedback has been from customers.
Momentum is absolutely starting to build around the brand and the proposition, and I think the key learnings for us have been how to educate our partners on the difference between remanufactured and refurbished products. Some partners have had less than satisfactory experiences with refurbished products, so they take a little more convincing, but once that hurdle has been passed and that they understand the circular computing proposition, they can start to build that into their solutions to their end users.
So what advice would you give to any reseller who is considering selling circular computing laptops?
It's quite simple, really. Give us at Ingram Micro a call, give the guys at Circular Computing a call, and let's get involved, because as soon as you see the product and understand the quality behind the remanufacturing process, you will be seriously impressed by the product. And you add to that the sustainability credentials of the circular computing product and proposition, as well as the cost benefits, and it's a highly compelling solution for end users to deploy. And to top it off, I would say the team at Circular Computing are passionate about their products, and I would say are amongst the most proactive of the channel teams that we've engaged with over the last 5-10 years.
I think the advice ultimately comes down to any reseller that they need to get into this space. This is one of those ones where the train has left the station. And so, I think you're going to see resellers that will be, I don't know how I ever live without this. I can't get enough of it. I'm going to really change my whole value proposition to go after it in the marketplace. You're going to have others that will institute it as part of their value proposition, and it'll be, you know, I'm diversified, and so I'm dealing with a whole variety of different types. And then you're going to have the resellers that are going to be the anti. You know, no, I don't think it's going to change. I'm going to stick to traditionally, you know, what I've always done. I think those types of resellers are going to find themselves quickly behind the sustainability curve.
Fascinating discussion, all of you. Thank you very much indeed.